Hello everyone. After a week of intense work at my desk, I decided to take a break and walk through my favorite part of the neighborhood, reflecting on different types of communication I observed, particularly during a visit to the CNE Fair in Toronto. Today, I want to share some of the insights on different forms of communication I encountered, focusing on one-way and two-way interactions. Communication is often perceived as simply exchanging messages between people, but it's far more complex than that. It's a dynamic process where both the sender and receiver actively contribute. Effective communication isn't just about talking or sending information. It's about listening, interpreting, and responding. This reciprocal exchange is what we refer to as two-way communication. As I guide you through my observations, we'll explore how communication influences our experiences in subtle and significant ways. This method, by which messages are conveyed and received, can greatly impact our interactions with our environment. During my walk, I noticed various types of exchanges. Some individuals were fully engaged in conversation, making eye contact and nodding, and actively listening to each other. This embodies two-way communication where both parties shape the conversation, allowing for a mutual exchange of ideas and emotions. It fosters communication, understanding, and rapport. Conversely, I also observed instances of one-way communication where one person was speaking but the other person was disengaged, perhaps nodding out of habit without truly participating. This type of communication often leads to misunderstanding, as there's no feedback loop to confirm that the message was received and understood as intended. The key takeaway from today's walk is the critical role two-way communication plays, not just in our personal lives, but also in the professional settings, especially within teams. It's not sufficient to merely send a message. We must ensure it's received, understood, and that the recipient has an opportunity to respond. This kind of interaction builds trust, minimizes misunderstandings, and leads to more effective and meaningful communication. Now let's take a look at the different kinds of one-way and two-way communication examples we saw at the CNE Fair today.
So here we are at the CNE Fair in Toronto. I'm taking a walk through and trying to notice the different kinds of one-way and two-way communication found here. So as we walk through, we already notice a few different pairs of people walking and talking. As I listen in on these conversations, I notice there's a lot of give and take between the sender and receiver. This can be noted as two-way communication. Over the announcements, we hear a woman saying that the next train is arriving in 5 minutes and heading to Port Credit GO station. This can be seen as a form of one-way communication where the sender is sending out a message that is not being reciprocated by the receiver. As I walk along, I also begin to notice people's nonverbal communication as well as verbal. The setting here is more so calm. The announcement mentioned that the bus would be arriving in 5 minutes, meaning that people are walking pretty slowly. They're not in much of a rush. They're already at the station, so they're mainly just waiting around. To the left, we note a group of 4 individuals engaging in two-way conversation. As I listen in on this conversation, there seems to be a lot of give and take between each of the recipients. The topic of conversation seems to revolve around each member finding an acceptable way home. This type of communication seems to intend to establish rapport. As well as intending to establish rapport, it also is intending to build connections, facilitate agreement, and show interest in others. Between this group of 4, each individual is being invited to speak as well as inviting others to speak, each one taking the time to listen to suggestions about how to get home. As I continue to walk through, I notice other types of one-way versus two-way communication. Across the platform, there are various GO train attendees making different announcements about where to go and at what time the trains are arriving. This can be seen as a form of one-way communication, as again, they are sending out a message to a receiver, but there is no message being received in return. Up ahead, I continue to listen to different conversations being had amongst various groups. Among one group, there is 2 people worried about getting home. In this conversation, it seems that there was an intention to establish status, where one individual says, "Don't worry, I've made this trek 100 times." To this comment, the other individual did not respond, as this again seems that it was more of a brag, more of a masculine communication style. So in this example, we can note a one-way communication because there was no response to the remark being made. As I inch closer to the entrance of the CNE Fair, it seems that the nonverbal communication seems to pick up a bit. People are a bit more active, they're a little bit more energetic, they seem more excited about entering the festival. Or groups have just exited the festival, having had a good time with their friends and family, feeling overjoyed about a day well spent. Among several groups, I hear communication intended to establish rapport. Several groups exited the festival, having recounted fond memories having just been made within the festival. Some about the music being played, some about the rides they had just been on, and others about prizes they had just won playing festival games. Some other styles of two-way communication that I note are between the attendees and between those working at the festival. I hear one particular conversation between a woman who is attending a Wallows concert that night, asking whether she will be able to attend the CNE festival for free, being that she has the Wallows ticket. To this, the worker replies that she should ask the manager, but that the answer should be a yes. This is another example of a two-way communication where both parties are listening and receiving information. Another form of one-way communication comes from the individuals in the yellow vests standing by the Presto machines. The individuals in the yellow vests are telling visitors to press their cards onto the Presto machines so that they can enter the bus station. To this, not many people are responding or even reacting to these messages, making this another example of a one-way communication because there's a message being sent out by the sender, but nothing on the side of the receiver. In summary, our walk through the CNE Fair highlighted the impact of both one-way and two-way communication. While one-way communication can convey information efficiently, it's the two-way interactions that truly foster understanding and connection. By being mindful of how we communicate, we can enhance both our personal and professional relationships.